This is a fairy tale retell of The Elves and the Shoemaker. Once upon a time, in a small, quiet village, there lived a kind shoemaker and his gentle wife. The shoemaker worked very hard every day. He stitched and hammered and polished from morning until night. He was honest, careful, and proud of his work. But even though he worked so hard, there was never quite enough money. One winter evening, the shoemaker sat at his workbench and sighed.
Just one more pair. That's all the leather we have left.
His wife placed a warm hand on his shoulder.
We will manage,
She said kindly.
we always do.
The shoemaker smiled, even though his heart felt heavy. That night, he carefully cut the leather for one last pair of shoes. He laid the pieces neatly on the table.
Tomorrow I will rise early and finish them.
Then he and his wife went to bed, said their prayers, and fell fast asleep as the fire crackled gently in the hearth. The next morning, the shoemaker woke up early and hurried to his workshop. But when he stepped inside, he stopped in his tracks. There, sitting neatly on the table, was a perfectly finished pair of shoes. The shoemaker blinked. He rubbed his eyes. Then he leaned closer.
Not one crooked stitch, not one mark out of place.
His wife hurried in.
Did you finish them already?
She asked. The shoemaker shook his head slowly.
No, someone else did.
That very day, a customer came into the shop. He tried on the shoes and smiled from ear to ear.
These fit beautifully. I'll gladly pay extra for work this fine.
With the money, the shoemaker bought leather for 2 more pairs. That evening, he cut out the pieces, laid them on the table, and went to bed, with a lighter heart. The next morning, the shoemaker hurried to the workshop again. Once more, the shoes were finished. Perfectly. This kept happening, again and again. 2 pairs became 4. 4 became 8. Every morning the work was done before the sun rose. Soon the shoemaker and his wife were no longer worried. They had warm food, a cozy home, and smiles on their faces once again. But one question remained.
Who is helping us?
The shoemaker wondered. One evening, close to Christmas, the shoemaker said,
I would like to stay awake tonight and see who makes the shoes.
His wife nodded.
Yes, let's find out.
They left a small lamp glowing in the corner and hid quietly behind a curtain. The clock ticked. The fire crackled. Midnight arrived. Suddenly, the door creaked open. In skipped 2 tiny elves no taller than a teapot. They wore shabby old clothes, and their feet pattered softly on the floor. They hopped onto the workbench, picked up the leather pieces, and got straight to work. Tap, tap, stitch, stitch, rap, rap. Their little fingers flew faster than the shoemaker had ever seen. The shoemaker held his breath. His wife pressed her hand to her mouth. Before long, the shoes were finished and shining beautifully on the table. The elves nodded happily, giggled, and danced right out the door, disappearing into the night.
Those poor little elves work so hard for us. And they have such shabby-looking clothes.
You're right. And it must be terribly cold for them.
I'll make them clothes, shirts, coats, trousers. and little hats.
And I'll make them shoes.
They worked carefully and lovingly, stitching each tiny button and polishing each tiny shoe. That night, instead of leather pieces, they laid the clothes and shoes neatly on the table. Then they hid and waited. At midnight, the elves skipped in as usual. But when they saw the gifts, they stopped. They laughed and clapped their hands.
For us!
One squeaked.
How lovely,
Said the other. In a blink, they were dressed in their new clothes. They danced and twirled and leapt about the room, delighted from head to toe. Then, with happy waves, they danced out the door and into the moonlight. The elves never returned, but the shoemaker and his wife never needed help again. The shoemaker's business stayed strong, their home stayed warm, their hearts stayed full. And every Christmas they smiled, remembering the tiny helpers who had changed their lives with kindness, care, and a little bit of magic.